So I'm joined by Tommy Anderson, who's an Aldershot fan and Shots Trust Media and Communications Director. Tommy, obviously it's been difficult over the last kind of month, really, for Aldershot. You haven't won in the league or at all since then, have you? So, I mean, what's been going on at the Rec?
Where do I start? I mean, at the moment it's a really frustrating period, to be honest with you, Jacob. You know, whilst Andy Scott keeps coming out and saying there's positives, I think if you ask at least 3/3 of the crowd who are witnessing these games, there aren't many positives to take it. It really is becoming a shambles where we're being outfought by teams that really shouldn't be out fighting us. There just seems to be a real lack of leadership on the pitch. There seems to be even a bit of a lack of leadership in the touchline, to be honest with you. It's a very frustrating time. At the way it's going in our next two fixtures, I don't see it getting any better. But in recent games, I don't think it can get any worse, to be honest with you. It really isn't good at the moment.
No, I mean, I guess today, I mean, you lost 3-1 to Barnet. I guess, in a way, that's kind of excusable. Can you let us know how you played? Did you play well, or was it a dire performance today?
It wasn't brilliant. I wouldn't come out and say we didn't play well. I think the difference was, I think Barnet showed us why they're top of the league. We had chances, you know, more of our shots were going near the corner flag than they were going towards the net, to be honest. And Barnet in John Akindi and Maro Vihente, their winger, you know, really good players, and they punish you. So I think it was a case today of they took their chances and we didn't. But I wouldn't say it was a bad performance. We just didn't offer an awful lot. I mean, for a group of players that we've got on paper, this is a decent squad. And to be honest with you, it's not showing their potential. I think something's got to change, and quickly.
Do you think that obviously they made the FA Cup, was it the second round? I think obviously beating Portsmouth along the way. Do you think that kind of covered up what's been a pretty poor season so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Without any shadow of a doubt, the FA Cup really has papered over a lot of cracks. And to be honest with you, I mentioned it to you the other day, and I've spoken about it on Radio Woking. Sometimes I think the FA Cup run's been overlooked at. I mean, it seems to me that even as a football club and some of the players, just because we've beaten Portsmouth, they think that they've done the job and it's switched off from the bread and butter, which is the league. And to be honest with you, you'd think that we've beaten the Portsmouth 6 years ago. We've beaten a mid-table League 2 team who really are in poor form themselves. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Rochdale at home, they had a number of players missing, and some that did play had sickness bugs. And of course, when we went to Rochdale away, it showed, because some of their players came back, albeit 4-1 flattered them. You know, it gave us a bit of a kick up the backside, to be honest with you. But following on from Rochdale, winning away was a complete shambles. And today wasn't brilliant, but the cup run definitely has papered over a lot of cracks, in my view.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of saying that the Portsmouth game, you know, obviously it's an achievement to beat a Football League team. I mean, you know, a lot of teams, I mean, you can go out to teams below you, and I think, you know, Aldershot obviously suffered that in the trophy when they lost to Burgess Hill Town. But, I mean, yeah, obviously it probably wasn't the Portsmouth that, you know, won the competition, you know, all those years ago, but I guess it was still an impressive scout. But I guess the issue is that, you know, at this level, the conference, when you go out of the FA Cup after, you know, a short run, and you're not in the trophy anymore, and you're kind of mid-table, your season's almost drifting off. You know, it's not going anywhere, you know, by the turn of the year, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, basically it's definitely, you know, once we come out of Christmas and New Year, that's our season over. There's no way in hell that we're going to get promoted or be anywhere near there. I think we've got more chance of being another relegation battle at this rate, and that's not acceptable, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, at the start of the season, Andy Scott was saying, don't judge me on last year, judge me on this year. I brought my own players in. These players will reap the rewards in the long run. Well, we're not reaping any rewards. You know, we're really struggling. I think this year, the way it's going, it's worse than last year, to be honest with you, because last year we got 10 points by the middle of September when we had -10. Well, you know, that gave us a platform to build on. This year, it's not clicking at the moment, and you almost get the feeling that some of the players and some of the fans are losing a little bit of faith in Andy Scott. And on a personal level, I really like Andy. You know, every question I've put to him in interviews and even in personal chat, he's answered. He never shirks the question. He's a really nice guy, but sometimes nice guys don't succeed in management. I'm not saying Andy won't ever succeed in management, but I think it's looking increasingly thin that he's going to make a real good go at Aldershot, because, you know, he's had his chance now. Many fans, and the crowds are dwindling, many fans are losing faith, and it's so easy to lose fans, but getting them back is the hardest thing, and I can't see, you know, under Andy Scott, us getting the fans back. The style of football isn't great, and we're not winning. Recipe of disaster for any football club.
Yeah, I think, as you say, though, I guess, you know, I'm not saying it'd be better to be in a relegation fight, but, you know, the fans drift away because, you know, obviously they're not winning, and, you know, the prices are relatively high these days, kind of across the conference, and, you know, fans just aren't really interested in, you know, oh, well, we've won today, but we're still, you know, nowhere near the playoffs, and, you know, we're actually too good to be relegated. So I guess, you know, that is an issue for getting fans in, you know, to the ground. But I guess at the same time, the second half of the season, there might be a little bit less pressure. You know, if Aldershot can put a run together and move away from the relegation zone, they might start to play more freely and, you know, have an eye on next season almost.
Well, that's what you'd like to think. I mean, we've got this FA Cup money that's come in that, you know, it's going to be, I'd say, in the region of about £120,000 that hasn't been budgeted for. So I would like to think that if there is money available in January, whether they'll try and dip in and get a creative midfielder or bring in a forward, I think some will have to go for sure. I think that it won't work while you've got some of the players we've got there now. We won't push on, but it'd be interesting to see what sort of ambition the board and Andy Scott have got and where they want to go. I think that they possibly won't go all out in January because, as we mentioned, the season probably is over. I think maybe in the summer that'll be the telling time. Will they use some of the cup money to push on for next season and really make a go of it? And will Andy Scott be their man that they want to distribute that money to? It's a lot of questions at the moment that remain unanswered, and it's a tough time, actually, I'll be honest with you.
Talking of players leaving the club, and I'm not really too sure. Maybe you've got, you know, a bigger insight on this than, you know, most of the media do. But I know that Sam Elliott from the non-league paper, you know, quite a respected journalist within non-league, you know, reported that Brett Williams had gone onto a transfer list, and then the club came out and said, well, that's never happened. And do you see him being a player that could move on? And how do you understand the situation with it is behind the scenes?
I think, to be honest with you, it was interesting you bring up the Sam Elliott tweet, because as you say, Sam works for a non-league paper. He's well known in non-legal, respected journalists, and it's interesting because they swear blind that he was transfer listed. Everyone at the club, and even Brett himself, when I've spoken to him, said that's not the case. I think any fan will say Brett's performances in the last 6 to 8 weeks haven't been great, and he's not matched up to the standards of last season. I think personally his head's elsewhere. I think that Brett will go in the summer. I think there's no doubt about that. I think whether he wants to go or not, I think if he wants to go, he'll go. If he doesn't, I still think he's going to go himself. I don't see much of a future for Brett Aldershot at the moment. He's not scoring goals, but the fans are on his back, which is a little bit harsh. He's a little bit of a scapegoat. I think the problem is for Brett in his own way. He overperformed last season in terms of his goal scoring record, and he hasn't lived up to that so far. And sometimes I think that's been a bit of a burden on him. And you know, there's been a bit more pressure on him this year. He hasn't quite been the main man. Now Dan Holman's come in, and of course, you know, whilst Dan Holman hasn't set the world alight goal scoring wise, he's working a lot harder than Brett. He chases every ball. He doesn't give up. He's a creative player, and he's something that the Yorkshire fans are really taken to. But personally, I think Brett, you know, will leave the club, whether it be January or whether it be next summer. I don't think he'll be wearing an Aldershot shirt next season. If he does, I'll be very surprised.
Obviously, he's one player that's definitely going to be up for the game on Sunday, as he was last season. You know, when he got the goal both at the Recreation Ground and at Kingfield. Could he be a key player that could kind of almost reignite his season in a game like Sunday?
I'd like to think so. I mean, if Brett's not going to be up for this game, then he may as well give up and walk away from the game now, because this is the game, as you say, that he really should be up for, and I think he will. And to be honest with you, I look at it and think that every player will be up for Sunday, rightly so as well, but if they win Sunday, they've got to try and take that into Barnet and then into Telford. It's no good turning up one week like we did and beat Portsmouth and then losing to Eastleigh at home and dropping points at Welling. And no disrespect to them guys, because you know they deservedly beat us on the day. Just because we're all shot town and we're beating Portsmouth doesn't mean to say we have a divine right to go to Welling and pick up a result. It's all about what you do on the day, and we've been outfought by a lot of these teams, and I honestly do believe that if we do pick ourselves up against Woking, which I'm sure we probably will, looking at it, I'm quietly confident going into that one, we've got to maintain it. We can't just pick and choose when we show character, because to me that, if you do well in a cup game or you do well in your biggest game for us, which is Woking in the league, that's not showing great character. Showing great character is doing it against your Wellings away, your Braintrees away, your Dovers away. That to me shows if a player's got really good character about them.
You said you obviously quite quietly confident about Sunday. I know the game earlier in the season, I mean, we never really got your thoughts on it, but it was quite a tight game, wasn't it, earlier in the season, with, a wonder goal that separated the two sides?
Yeah, it was a tight game, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I think Woking are up there as one of the best teams I've seen this season, to be honest. I mean, you defended really well. I think, the goal was a great goal. Some Aldershot fans say that Phil Smith should have saved it, but to be honest with you, I think when Giuseppe's soul, he feels like he's been around forever. I think he's only about 25, 26, but he has a habit of scoring good goals like that. Good player. I mean, it's just one thing, if you don't mind me asking you a question here, Jacob, I just want to people talk about the budget at Woking. I mean, obviously, please tell me to mind my own business if you like, but it just, a lot of people, there's some real good players at Woking, and it seems that, is the budget, is Woking as small as it's made out to be, given some of the players you've got in your squad?
Well, obviously it's a part-time budget, so if we were full-time, obviously I think it'd be a lot larger. But I think if you look at a lot of the key players there that will be taking a lot of money home, your Rendells, but even a lot of the loan players that have come in. We don't know with the loan players quite how much we're paying them. So people like your Jack Marriott's and your Chris Arthur's, we just don't know how much these players are being paid. So I'd like to think that we're not paying much of their wages from the Football League teams. But I mean, the only other thing is we've got a really small squad. I think it's under 20. I think it's about 18 players that we've actually got signed on. So I think this year they've gone for quality rather than quantity. And unfortunately, I think you can see at times in the season that we're lacking depth at times, and I think that's just because they've gone out there and they've budgeted to get these players in, who as you say are good players and probably do get paid quite a bit, but again they're only part-time, so it won't be as much as it could have been. And a lot of them also, I think, people like Dean Morgan, who could have been on quite a lot, and I know he did well for you guys, but this was kind of not the last chance saloon for him, but he was struggling to find a club after being released in the summer. So I don't know if that, that has any effect on the wage demands, which he has. But you never know. It might be that he's taken slightly less money than he could have done because he wasn't being offered anything elsewhere. So no one's really too sure. But I think the core of players that have been there for years now aren't on too much. And I think you've got your few big names who probably will be on a bit more. But I don't think there's too much room to move there. I think the budget's kind of maxed out as it is, and it's just a case of getting free agents in and getting the best you can out of them, with what they're paid, really.
I totally agree. I think that's, the route you've gone down isn't a bad one. I mean, I suppose some might say you're overachieving this year, and I suppose you mentioned about the strength in depth. I think that might be the difference for you guys. I think teams, your Gateshead, your Forest Green, even Kidderminster, they might just pull through because they've got a larger squad than yourselves, and in some ways that is good for you that you've done so well up till now, but come the business time of the season when ultimately games are going to get postponed due to whether an injury's picked up, you need that depth, don't you?
Yeah, I think you do, and obviously this time of the season as well, it's just, there seems to be, there's a game every other day nearly, isn't there, and it's difficult as well. I mean, we've been picking up injuries here and there, and obviously you're going to get things like suspensions along the way, so that could be a telling factor. But also I think, it might be a case of, if Woking don't do it this season, are they ever going to do it? And I think if they invest now, not massively, no one wants to see them overspend, but when again are they going to be in this position coming into the new year? It might be that they have to take a punt, they have to take a gamble, but just how big a gamble they can take without risking the club status or risking any kind of debt, because obviously we've seen, and that's something that's obviously happened at Aldershot and many other clubs where they spend too much and then just drift into financial difficulties. So obviously you can't chase it that hard, but it probably would be nice to see them try and strengthen again.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose one thing you really have got in your favour, I suppose you've got Gary Hill as manager who knows non-league inside and out, and he's probably got some good contacts where if you were going to get injuries or suspensions, and you could bring a couple of people in.
Yeah, and definitely, so far, he's been absolutely incredible in just, getting these names that you'd never expect to turn up at Woking. I mean, there's some of the names he signs, and genuinely I'm surprised by some of the people that come in and the way where players, if they leave, sometimes they come back and we really don't expect them to. So, I think, obviously, he's a great manager, and you know, I think that's quite nice. I mean, I look at what's going on at Aldershot at the moment. I see a lot of the fans are split on whether they want Andy Scott in or whether they want him out, and it's just, I suppose it's quite nice for Woking to be settled. I mean, I've not ever heard anyone suggest that he should be sacked, which is really nice. But I guess it's how long he wants to stay at a club. You know, I mean, he's proved himself this season. I mean, he's doing really well. So we're one of the bigger names, or even a Football League team. They could come in from it at some stage, which is, you know, probably a worry for Woking fans. But you know, if he does the business this season and at least gets them in the playoffs, then I'm sure he'll have achieved his goal at Woking. I was just going to ask you, obviously, when Woking played Aldershot last, we lost Aaron Howe, who was in goals with serious injury, and Andy Little had to play in goal, and it was quite a rare situation, as I don't think he'd played for 3 seasons, and he came on and kept a clean sheet that night. I've seen that your goalkeeper has been ruled out for Sunday. Was it a red card today, Phil Smith?
Yeah, it was. I mean, perfectly honest with you, I think there was about 30 seconds of the game left. John Akindi's gone clean through, rounded him. I think it was a bit of a rush of the blood from Phil. Personally, the game was over for me then. I think I'd have rather have John Akindi just rolled the ball in the net and Phil Smith not grabbed his legs and pulled him down, because at that point he's got it round the keeper. He's got a free tap in at goal. As soon as you bring him down, it just prolongs the agony, because he's going to score the penalty on a hat-trick. Phil Smith's got sent off, and he's missing a really important game. And of course we've got Dan Thomas as our sub-goalkeeper, who, you know, I've only played about 30 seconds of action all season, and I think it's a tough one. I think obviously he might come and have a blinder, but you know, he could also, he's probably not been thrown into a position like this before, such a high intense game, to make his full first senior start for the football club, and I'd like to think he wouldn't buckle under it. I don't think he will, but it's a tough game to be thrown into.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, but maybe that might benefit him. I mean, he's not got a long time to think about it. I mean, we're now Friday and the game's on Sunday, so he's not got ages to dwell on it. And, you know, sometimes you do see keepers come in, and, you know, obviously Andy Little came into goal for Woking that night, and, you know, he's got bags of experience, but he certainly wasn't expecting to play that night, so you never know. And then that certainly, well, it didn't work in Woking's favour, but he kept a clean sheet that night, which was, you know, brilliant for Woking. On terms of other players, I see Mark Mosley. Is he out as well?
Yeah, Mark's got a long-term injury. I don't know the extent of the injury yet, but I think it's fair to say we won't see him for a while yet. And I think this will be Mark's last year at Aldershot. I think in terms of his playing ability, he's been a real good servant to Aldershot in his 3 spells, but I can't see Mark staying there. I think once his contract runs out in May, that will be Mark gone, which will be a shame, because he has been a good player, and I think injuries taking his toll on him a little bit now. He's getting on a bit. I think he's about 33, 34. He's picking up injuries and knocks, and each knock and each injury is getting longer and longer, his sideline out. So it is a shame, because I think Mark could be the difference on games like Sunday. Seems to come up in the big games with a game-changing moment or even a goal, and I think Mark's certainly going to be a big miss. But I think his time at Aldershot's coming to an end, for the sake that I think the philosophy next season is going to be perhaps a more younger, fitter squad, because we've had far too many injuries at Aldershot this season. Russ Clash, our physio and fitness guy, has really struggled to keep on top of it, to be honest. It's you know, 2 players get fit and 3 come back injured. It really has been unfortunate. I've never known a side get injuries like it this season, to be honest. It's been mayhem.
How do you see Sunday going? I mean, I know you said you're quietly confident, but, you know, do you think it'll be another defensive game, or do you think it'll be quite open? I mean, I know Woking at the moment are struggling, you know, to defend in games, and it's not helped by injuries to, you know, Mike Sester, who was playing centre back and came off a couple of weeks ago against Southport with what looked like quite a serious injury, and, you know, they've conceded 2 more today, but they're really finding it hard to kind of keep clean sheets these days. So do you think it might? And I know obviously Aldershot have conceded a few in recent weeks. Do you think it might be an open game with a few goals, or do you think it'll be another tense, just 1 goal either way?
I think it's probably going to go exactly the way that it did in September. I think it's going to be a tense. I think it could be a wonder goal or a tap-in that wins it, or maybe a set-piece. I think it's going to be tense. I can't see it being too open, to be honest with you. I just think that Aldershot haven't, whilst on paper it might look as though we've got the firepower with Dan Fitchett, I suppose, Andrew McCollum, Brett Williams and Dan Holman. You know, their strikers who between them last year scored about 60 goals. I mean, this year they've, you know, just not lived up to it. So I think when we look at it like that, I don't quite think Aldershot have got the firepower for it to be too much of an open game. I don't know how Woking are going to approach it. I don't know sort of how you guys play, but I think the pressure is on Woking this time around. That's the first time in a long time. It'll be interesting to see how Woking respond to that. I suppose I am quietly confident, but part of me is also dreading it as well, because this could be the first year for a very long time that Woking have done the double over Aldershot, and the way it's going at the moment, I suppose it's probably fair that a lot of fans will be thinking that that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are in kind of equally out of sort of form. I mean, Woking, you know, obviously they got a draw today, which was great, but, you know, 3 straight losses in the league before that. Obviously they won in the trophy, but they haven't won in the league since the 2nd of December, and Aldershot haven't won this month at all in the league. So, you know, it's a tough game for both clubs, isn't it? But I guess form goes out the window in a derby, and you know, you never know what's going to happen. I wouldn't say that one team is you know, banging form at the moment. So, you know, I guess both teams, they're kind of slightly negative and slightly worrying about it. So it might be quite a nervy, cagey game. But you know, there's nobody that's, you know, banging form. So you never know. How do you see it going? What you give a score prediction?
Oh, score prediction, wow. Before I give you a score prediction, I think that it's going to be, as I mentioned, a tight, close game. I possibly think that the set of fans that Aldershot are going to bring, I think, might be a turning point, because, you know, Aldershot don't normally take more than 200-300 to any away game. So I think, obviously, we're going to have I'd imagine it's going to be 800 and 1,000 coming to your place. I don't know, might get us over the edge. I think we'll probably nick it 1-0.
I'm going to go for, I think it's going to be more goals. I know obviously you haven't really been watching us, and we've not been watching you, and well, more than you know, kind of sporadic highlights, but Woking very open at the moment, and it's kind of all or nothing. And there's kind of, you know, that they're not as tight defensively, and I don't think we can keep a clean sheet like we did against you earlier in the season. But, you know, I think that there will be goals in the game, and, you know, saying you're bringing, you know, your second goalkeeper in, it's his first proper game and stuff like that. I think there might be a few goals, so I'm going to put my neck on the line and go 2-2. But thanks for your prediction, and thanks for your time.
No, not a problem. I mean, I hope there is a load of goals, to be honest with you. I really do. I mean, there's nothing worse than sitting in a tense derby game. You want it to be open, you want it to be free flowing. I must admit, you mentioned your defence being a bit leaky. One thing I noticed in September was how solid and firm they were. I mean, everything that come at them, they dealt with relative ease, to be honest with you. Yeah,
I think that they're struggling. So Mark Ricketts, who's is the captain and centre midfielder, almost worked as a shield in front of the back four. And unfortunately he's picked up an injury and he's not been playing, and it's all too open in the middle of the park, and I think teams are running through the centre, and by the time they get to the back four, you know, it's just not in a good shape by then, and you know, it's a lot more difficult. I'd almost compare it a little bit like to Chelsea when they have Matic in front of the back four. You know, it's just that extra layer of security, and I think without Ricketts there, that they do struggle, unfortunately, defensively. And at times this season, some very average teams have come to Kingfield and run straight through the middle of Woking, so I think that will be a concern for them. Obviously, I mean, when Southport came a few weeks ago, they had plenty of opportunities. I think when Telford came, they had loads of opportunities and scored 3, and you know, everyone knows the form they're in this season, so I think it will be a difficult one, and I think we will see quite a few goals. Well, we could see quite a few goals, but I'd quite like to think that maybe the big game, you know, will bring out a better defensive display, hopefully.